So my point is this is something that I have had forever. Okay. About 3 to 4 weeks in, it was gone.
Brad, how did you find carnivore?
Uh, Kind of a circuitous route. I would say that I'll begin kind of with the end. I think it was Jordan Peterson and his daughter. I'm kind of a Peterson fan and a Michaela Peterson fan too. And when I first heard, and I think I saw that him talking on Joe Rogan, and I was like, "Oh, that's insane," you know. And what's funny about that, so then to back up a little bit, is I had found keto, and I had been keto for quite a while. I kind of lost track, but I think it's in the neighborhood of 6 to 7 years of keto. What was interesting about keto, though, for me was it was very difficult to maintain. Keto's become popular, right? So, grocery stores and keto chips and keto candy and keto this and keto that and net carbs. And unfortunately I bought into it, and slowly my reason for doing it started back up. And so anyways, my main reason for doing keto was in hopes, and it was really, I didn't even know that it was going to work or not. Actually, I didn't even believe it was going to work, to be honest with you, but it was desperate, was mental health. It turns out that I covered my constant anxiety and suicidal thoughts very well. And add that I'm a man of faith, and suicide is not an acceptable concept. And besides, it's a crummy thing to do to people you love, right? So it was probably never something I was never going to actually do. But it was always raging in the background. And then the anxiety. I sleep really. I'm blessed with good sleep, but I have, when I was not keto, I was very anxious, and so I would have these dreams of embarrassing moments that just would riddle my thoughts, and like remembering something stupid I did or something wrong I said. And then I also had a lot of dreams of kind of nightmares where I would be in a tunnel underground, where I couldn't get my arms, past my body to get my arms, and I had to crawl from one side to the other. And I'm quite claustrophobic, I found out later in life. So, pretty bad anxiety. So the keto actually helped that. And, but again, as the keto turned into a slightly more paleo, and it got looser and looser, I got to a point where I was really having trouble finishing sentences. And the anxiety was back, and the, questioning why I'm alive and why should I bother and what's the point. January 2023, the beginning of 23, I pulled my wife aside and I said, hey, Leslie, I'm going to try this crazy concept, and she'd heard me talking about, because she's I've been watching your videos. I watch, Dr. Anthony Chafee, all the greats, Sean Baker, Ken Berry, and then a couple of the gals, although I don't really watch the gals that much, because I'm kind of old fashioned. That's another weird thing. But anyways, so I just got this wild idea. Look, I'm just going to try this for 30, maybe 90 days. And I'm still, here I am. I'm still carnivore.
I mean, happy anniversary, firstly.
Thank you.
So, or I should say happy carniversary. So, what has changed for you in that time? What's happened with the anxiety, and what other things have you noticed?
Well, when I went carnivore, it completely changed. But it was really strange how it changed. It kind of snuck up on me, and oh wow, I mean, so many things that it almost sounds like I'm telling a fib. It's kind of hard to believe. I mean, let me give you a bunch of little examples that come off the top of my head. And there's so many of them actually that I can't remember them all, because some of the things were like I had gotten normalized to and just accepted as part of getting older. I turned 61 here in February, and so I thought, I guess this is normal. But some of the ones that were kind of noted, right, was I had a patch, like a psoriasis patch on my back since my 20s. When I joined the Air Force, I had the medical exam. They made a comment about the patch, and just before I went carnivore, I was at a chiropractor, and he had me take my shirt off, and he saw the patch. He's like, "Oh, I got something, that'll take care of that." You know what I mean? So my point is this is something that I have had forever. Okay. About 3 to 4 weeks in, it was gone. I mean, completely gone. It's crazy. That was really unexpected. And then the other one was, I was far more bloated than I realized. And it bothered me. I was always the flat stomach, good chest. I was a weightlifter in high school and college, and I've always been in reasonably good shape, never been really quite very heavy. Although, again, I'd gotten normalized to it. It turns out I lost 50 pounds when I went carnivore, and I'm now back to 29-inch waist, and I lost my man boobs that I was starting to develop, and my stomach is flat, and I actually have a little bit of a six-pack there again, even though I'm not really doing any sit-ups. And so those are just a bunch. There's a bunch of them. My gums bled constantly. Every time I went to the dentist, they would, give me crap about the fact that, I wasn't flossing enough and I wasn't brushing enough, and, blah, blah, blah. And carnivore completely eradicated that. I mean, like every 6 months I'm in the dentist, for cleaning or whatnot. And they're like, "What'd you do? What's going on?" Because, and that's supposedly one of those things you can't ever really fix. It's kind of, what do they call it? Degenerative or something like that. Anyways. And, that went away. But the most amazing thing was the very reason that I did it was my mental health. Before I went keto, I was within a hair's breadth of being diagnosed as bipolar. That was getting worse as I got older. And I met with the doctor, our general practitioner doctor, whatever you call it. And he was getting ready to send me to a specialist, and they were, of course, going to throw the SSRIs at me and stuff like that, and me being, I'm just not, again, a man of faith. I just, medicine never appealed to me. It's just not the way I ever roll. And I was like, but my wife and I we talked about it. We're like, "Hey, Brad, if you need to do this, then you need to do this, because, I was having real problems. I mean, I was running away from my business. People were calling me, trying to schedule, and I couldn't get up I was, nobody knew this, but I was having trouble getting out of bed in the morning. There were certain clients that were a little more challenging than others. And I would find myself, avoiding, because I just couldn't cope. But I think the most interesting thing about going carnivore is that, it took about half a year. I started getting things done. I didn't realize that I was stuck. I was horribly stuck. And I was just getting stuff done that needed to get done, to make a client happy or to get paid or, to finish a project that I started because I gave my word, and I was having trouble meeting deadlines. So that was, but I mean, I think that's common to a lot of people, but when I went carnivore and after enough time and I got fat adapted and got past some of the problems of getting adjusted, I started getting stuff. I mean, the garage has been cleared out. The studio's been readjusted and cleaned, and I mean the list goes on and on. I've got a couple more projects that still need the honey-do list that needs to happen that has still not happened. But I wake up in the morning now at 5 a.m. or 4 in the morning, and I'm like raring to go. So. Yeah, but there have been some problems for carnivore with me too. And I don't want to harp on those, but I do really want to talk to you a bit about that. I really kind of would like to know what you think. And I know you're not a doctor. I'm definitely not a doctor, and I know that you disclaim that on your, you're clear about that on your channel. But I would love some help in a couple areas. For instance, I'm still struggling with foot cramps, and but what's interesting is they're typically, they've migrated lower and lower to the bottom of my feet or the tops of my feet, and they're not all that bad anymore. And they happen like at 1:30 in the morning. And then if it happens at 1:30, it happens again at 3 a.m. in the morning. And that's sometimes one of the reasons I just get up and just get going, because I feel good anyways, other than the crazy foot cramps. And then other times, the other thing that I struggle with sometimes is going through a tired period after I eat. So I'm usually like OMAD. I'm pretty much one meal a day, maybe two a day. But I struggle. I'm not pure carnivore, as many of us are not pure carnivore. And I've played with being more lion. But it just, life gets in the way and it just can't seem to stay with that. So, I don't know.
So I guess when you say you're not pure carnivore, what does that mean?
Well, for instance, I mean, I'm still messing with my keto coffee. So this is coffee with heavy cream, a third of a stick of butter, and a splash of MCT oil. I don't think that's really a carnivore thing, probably in the purest sense. And this could be part of my problem. I try to quit, and it doesn't really cause me any problems, but I just can't stay away from it long enough to figure out whether it's something I should just stop. And maybe, eventually I'll get to it and just say, okay, I'm going to quit for a full month. I'm not going to drink any of this and just see how I do. But I just, for whatever reason, it's, Christmas and New Year's and Thanksgiving and like last night we had guests over. They did a recital here at the studio. And, I had a little bit of scotch, which I don't drink hardly at all anymore. I mean, maybe once a month now, maybe not even that much. And usually just like one glass neat. I am a whiskey man, so it's kind of that was a little hard to give up, but not the end of the world. I mean, yeah. And again, the giving up the carbs has improved so many things. My nose, I think the alcohol was part of the problem too, but the skin on my nose was, and my nose was getting bulbous, and the vascularity was starting to really get, kind of, I think I looked like I had a drinker's nose, and I wasn't drinking that much, but it sure as heck looked like I was. And, but I think the inflammation was pretty substantial. And, a lot of my clients take pictures and put them on Facebook and put them on and do videos on YouTube and Instagram and stuff like that. And I just bumped into some recent projects just before I went carnivore, and oh my God, I was so inflamed. I had no idea how inflamed I was. It was terrible.
On the cramps, as I'm not a doctor, I can only share my experience, but I used to get awful cramps, early in the morning, and they have gone away completely since I just say I've gone crazy with the salt, So like I have the salt thing, the salt shaker, next to me while I'm eating breakfast, and I'll eat a couple of forkfuls, and I'll be like, it's not tasting salty enough anymore, and I'll put more salt on, and I just keep the salt up. And since then, I haven't had anything, and that's pink, like pink Himalayan salt is what I'm eating. So I think there's some potassium in there and stuff as well. So yeah.
Yep. I'm taking magnesium citrate. I've stayed away from magnesium oxide because that acts more as a laxative and is not very bioavailable from what they say. And I take potassium, and I try to salt pretty heavily. I did the Element, LMNT or whatever it's called. For me, that was hard to drink. Salty water is kind of just a hard sell for me. But I think you're onto something. I think, and I'm not afraid. I've never been afraid of salt. But for some reason, I think I'm a little more cautious than I need to be. And, I've noticed that when I do a steak in the morning, I'll use like the gray sea salt, the Celtic salt or whatever. And I'll, take out a big pinch and, and throw it on there, but I'm with you that some bits will taste nice and salty, and they taste phenomenal, and then I'll get a little further in, and all of a sudden it won't seem salty anymore. And my instinct is, well, I saw how much salt I put on there, so I'm not going to put any more salt on there. And you know what? I think I'm going to do exactly what you said. As soon as it starts to taste less salty, I'm going to throw more salt on there, and I'll try that.
And yeah, I mean, again, just my experience, but with the feeling sleepy after a meal, I think if that was happening to me, the only thing I would maybe put it down to is maybe I'm just having too much volume. Maybe I need to go half the volume, and maybe a couple hours later have the rest or something like that. Other than that, I can't think of why.
I have a theory, but I'm not sure of. I mean, I think I'm in more ketosis than maybe I should be, and being in ketosis on that level helps the kidneys wash the salts out, but also because the protein isn't high enough, the gluconeogenesis that converts protein to sugar. I may not be getting enough glucose to regulate the salts, and or maybe so that I don't know, or maybe I guess I'm kind of contradicting myself to some degree because it might be more of an insulin spike, because like you're saying, eating too much at one time, maybe I am getting a bigger insulin move because of the protein, and just because I've heard from like Professor Bart K and from a couple of the other ones that that they think that the eating a big meal is good if you want to push the insulin a little bit. I mean, it's still far less than if you're eating any carbs. But yeah, I think what's interesting too about Professor Barquet is I've spent a little more time listening to him. He's obviously really really knowledgeable, and he's quite controversial, and he enjoys being kind of theatrically coarse or salty or whatever you want to call it. And I don't mind that, but I always want to share his information because his information is so good. But I could never share his stuff with my mother, for instance, my 86-year-old mother. And he's, quite, my mom's more religious than I ever thought of being. And so she just couldn't handle him, but his information is so good. Now, I also understand that he has a couple other channels, and he has channels where he calms that down quite a bit. And so I get that. But anyways, my point is that his whole Randall cycle thing is really resonating with me. Although I don't completely understand it, I feel like I can follow it well enough to get it. But I also learned from him things that transcend some of the keto ideas that I had that were kind of what I would now call internet keto ideas. Like for a minute, originally I thought that the brain had to have glucose to survive. And then when I got into the keto world, I believed that, ketones could be an alternative fuel and you didn't need any glucose at all. And now from watching Barquet, it's like, no. There are cells in your body that must have glucose, but the issue is you don't ever have to eat any of them. You can, your body will produce them. And to me now I'm like, yeah, okay. That makes something in my spirit, for lack of a better way to put this, goes, yeah, you know what? I think that makes sense. There's something about that makes sense.
When you hear stuff like that, you really realize that, the marketing companies have been able to market stuff based on just technicalities. Your body needs glucose. All right, so you've got to eat enough glucose, otherwise you're going to die. And it's like, yeah, but there's a second part to that story.
Yeah, don't eat too much. Don't eat. Used to be, remember, don't eat eggs because they're full of cholesterol, and cholesterol is bad for you. But the dumb thing is that your body makes cholesterol. You don't. how much you eat doesn't mean jack.
We've definitely been taken advantage of by and it's the same in all marketing, right? It's how people sell anything. It's it's the way they frame it. And really it's been the way that the companies have framed it for so long, they've gotten away with it. But, the internet has so much information available on it now, and it's so easy to find stuff out, and, listening to podcasts or whatever you do, that you start to understand, they have been,
Well,
So,
I'm the story of Ansel Keys and how we got to this point, the food pyramid. I mean, there's so many people. Was it Low Carb Down Under channel? I think, is that what it's called? Anyways, they've got some great things on that, and of course, all the people we've been talking about, they talk about all that stuff and how we got to this, and I think the interesting dynamic is the religious component, and I think a lot of people don't understand how bad the Seventh-day Adventist aspect, particularly the medical Seventh-day Adventist aspect, has really played a real role in this whole food pyramid thing. But Ansel Keys is definitely a bad guy, So
yeah, he's kind of the poster boy for evil when it comes to nutrition, or not nutrition, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So have you had experience with the Seventh-day Adventist Church?
Well, I work in mostly primarily Christian music, and of course, Seventh Day Adventists are a denomination, and and there's some magnificent musicians in the Seventh Day Adventist circles, particularly here in the metropolitan Washington D.C. area, and so and so yes, I've got one friend that right now who will remain nameless, who is type 2 diabetic. He's been through 2 kidneys already. I think he's on his 3rd kidney. I knew him back when he was just a diabetic. He's been, of course, typical having feet problems, and he's now blind. He wasn't blind before, so he's lost his sight. And he went to college. Now, he's not a Seventh-day Adventist, but he came through the Seventh-day Adventist circles. And I think that this is kind of my point, is that certain religious groups tend to, turn the whole vegan thing into a religion. And my wife teases me that, my carnivore is now religion, but it's really not. I mean, I am open to being wrong. I'm open to changing it. I'm still experimenting. I'm still learning. I'm seeking to know more. But I do have to say, the further I go on just personal experience, the more convinced I am that the idea that you do not have to eat one carb ever, which is just blows my mind. And in fact, I probably should never eat another carb ever, is just like, wow. You know what I mean? And certainly all the dogma, the marketing, but even, the whole, and we all know, and I love that some of these great doctors that are on the carnivore side or the keto side, like Westman, they're not bad mouthing vegans, and they all agree that it's a good first move, but that certainly getting away from the processed foods is a real, and I think the Bart K thing, where it's really the issues, not just the seed oils and the processing, but the combining of the two, is, I think, really more of the problem than almost anything else. So, but the point is that if you do the vegan thing right, you'll get benefits from it, at least at first. The only problem with vegan, and again, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know this, but from watching lots of YouTube and seeing lots of vegans that have said, I did that for 8 years, I did that for 6 years, and wow, I'm a carnivore now. From watching those people, it's very clear to me that it's not sustainable. Now, they think that the carnivore thing is not sustainable either. And of course, all the worries about cancer. But I mean, you've done shows with people that talk about, that know way more about that. But I'm sold on the idea that this carnivore lifestyle, it's clearly, supercharges the autoimmune system and disables and takes away all the disabling that you've been doing. Our bodies are so tough. They put up, if you're genetically, I'm genetically made, I ate tons of carbs and I ate everything. And I was one of those people, everyone hated me. It's like, Brad, you can eat anything. It'll never matter. Well, eventually it caught up with me, but I was having other problems, the mental health thing. But I didn't attribute it to diet. I'd never even heard of the idea until Jordan Peterson, basically, and I didn't believe it when I heard it.
Along your journey, how has your wife been with this? Has she joined you? Kind of.
She's not as sold on it, which is interesting. my wife is your. How many women do we know that have struggle with weight issues and my wife has never been over the top with her weight, but she's only a couple times in our marriage. We've been married 39 years, and next January it'll be 40, and she's only been particularly thin twice in our being married together. But I don't know this for a fact, but I believe, and I think she dealt with. Well, let's just say that she went through a lot of what would be considered typical for a lot of ladies, and so she has joined me. I fix her steaks when I make myself one, and she loves them, and she's no longer embarrassed to like the steaks. And she eats a lot of eggs with me. She does a coffee, but she's doing an erythritol monk fruit blend to sweeten her coffee that I've given up on. As I've gotten further into carnivore, I've gotten away from anything that tastes sweet. I go in cycles. Occasionally I'll break down and have a Diet Coke or something stupid like that. But as a general rule, I stay away from the artificially sweetened stuff now. Even if it's erythritol or monk fruit or stevia. And so she's still doing that, but she definitely, like last night, she had some roasted potatoes with the steak and some broccoli, and she's a vegetable girl. She always loved her vegetables. So, but she's not afraid of the meat either, and she's very much off the refined sugars because I don't, and so we don't really have a problem with that. But she's much more apt to do like the keto candy, no sugar added, zero net carbs stuff. She does some of that. And I think she's seeing some results. I mean, actually it's much slower for her, but I believe that she's envious of us men. She feels that all men respond to any kind of diet change more readily than women do. I don't agree with that. I think it's that because she's never really gotten serious about the carnivore thing. Now that I see how effective it is, that and my hopes is that she will just kind of slowly, and she kind of is slowly, kind of just go with the flow and go my route, because I mean, like I said, I lost 50 pounds. I stopped snoring. My gums stopped bleeding. My breath doesn't stink anymore. I don't have gas. I'm not bloated. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, and every time somebody that hasn't been here in 6 months or a year comes to this, they like, oh my God, you look fabulous. What's going on? So, but again, she kind of resents the fact that, I kind of, I'm a guy and it seems to come easy for me, and it doesn't help that I've always been basically kind of thin anyway. So, but, yeah, I would love to see her, to adopt it fully, but she still doesn't really completely believe, it's like when you said in the one video that, had me apply to do an interview with you. You said your Japanese friends would say, wow, you look fabulous. What are you doing? And, you'd say, yeah, I'm doing carnivore. And they're like, what's that? And you're like, it's animal products and basically nothing but, and they're like, oh, I could never do that. You know what I mean? Yeah. I've got friends, a lot of friends that are kind of come at me that way. The other one that they throw at me, I'll have to comment on that video if it's still up, to the effect of that one I get a lot more from friends who love me is, Brad, I'm so glad that works for you. And I'm like, no, but you don't get it, I mean, do you get I'm glad that it works for you?
yeah, I'm glad that works for you. Wouldn't work for me. And then you get the people also like friends who'll go, "Yep, it all makes sense. It all makes sense. It all makes sense. It all makes sense." But I need this, and it's like, okay, okay, well, you do you. I'm not going to argue with you. But yeah, everyone has to come to it at their own time, I guess.
I think the staying away from carbs and the cravings are pretty much gone, and it and certainly the satiety everyone talks about is absolute fact. I mean, it's just amazing. One meal a day is easy. My wife kept thinking, you're not eating enough, Brad. You're not eating enough. I'm like, well, I just don't feel hungry. So. But maybe that's sometimes why my energy was a little off. I don't know, but sometimes. But certainly after sleeping, getting up, man, I'd be sharp as a tack. I'd be ready to go. And I always thought I lacked the willpower, and I was so annoyed that I lacked the willpower to work out. And now all of a sudden, I feel like going and working out. It's like, and it's not a willpower thing. It's like, oh, snap, let's go do that. That'd be fun. What I mean? It's like, where did that come from? You know what I mean? But like I said, I found out I was stuck. Do you know I was stuck for a decade? I was stuck for more than a decade. After my dad passed away, I moved my mom back to this area, and I moved a bunch of stuff, that I inherited from my dad, into the garage. And I just had a boatload of projects that I just kept putting off and couldn't get done, and didn't and I rationalized that it was, I'll get to it, but I got to get this done. I'm really busy. I've got, I got deadlines. I got, so, whatever. But carnivore woke me up to, oh, snap, I'm getting stuff done. And wow, how long has it been since, I can't believe it, I was stuck that long. I think the other thing that I'm not too excited, if I was going to pick on carnivore a little bit, is I feel that it has aged me a little bit. And I'm hoping that you seem like your skin seems to be getting tighter over the course. I mean, I think if I look at earlier videos of you, I think I don't know, maybe it's my imagination, but I think that the loss of weight and the loss of the inflammation in my face has made, and combined with my age, I guess, has made my skin a little more, wrinkly and stuff like that. And I'm really hoping that that it may take a while, but that skin will tighten up. What do they call that? Autophagy? Is that what they call it? But I think some of the gals are like the steak and butter gal, that gal, oh my God, her skin is like amazing. I mean, she just looks freaking awesome. I mean, it's like, wow. And same thing with Chafee. I mean, he's like a Greek god, for crying out loud. I mean, the guy just looks awesome. You know what I mean? And Sean Baker and Ken Berry. I mean, all these guys are looking spectacular. People always say, "Oh, Brad, you'll look young forever," but all of a sudden, I'm not looking so young. But I don't know. It's if I don't look, it's worth it. The other thing that it's really improved is I don't know this because I haven't had my blood tested. But it sure feels like my testosterone thing is like really working. And so many of the relationship elements, just to be kind and not get too detailed. I'd have to say that was an unexpected improvement that is, as a man, is all by itself very motivating to stay carnivore. I mean, for real. And I don't talk about that a whole lot, but I wasn't really having necessarily that many problems, but there's been some changes that have been like really nice, and yeah, I, I'm just not gonna get more detailed than that.
That's awesome. I mean, the great thing about it is, you know, the list, like you said before, the list is a mile long.
It is. It's
Like,
crazy.
and every time you kind of think, well, okay, well, I've kind of covered everything, and then you think, this is this too. This is better, and that's better in my life, and that's better. And the great thing about this is, it's not like your regular diet. It's not like your calories in, calories out, Jenny Craig or Weight Watchers kind of diet where, you just lose weight and maybe your skin gets a bit better or something like that. It's like areas of your life outside of yourself improve, like relationships with other people and that kind of thing, right?
Absolutely. Stunningly. I mean, it's to the degree where it's almost sounds like snake oil. You know, what I mean, I'm kind of slow. I want so much for the people I love and who are close to me, and my clients that I'm close to and been working with for decades. Because I want to share this with them. You know what I mean? But I know, like religion, is the same kind of thing. If you know something is good and right, hey, I want to tell you about this because this is really cool. You know what I mean? And they're, and people are like, oh, I mean, and so. And so my hope is that in all things in my life, that by example, that people will go, hey, what's going on here? You know what I mean? But not to make it overly religious, but I feel that it was actually a spiritual journey for me that brought me to the carnivore thing, which sounds counterintuitive, because again, I just got done talking bad about the 7-Day Adventists, but I'm actually a very anti-denominational guy. I'm a very I'm not a fundamentalist, but I'm kind of just a basic Christian. I try to be as Bible based, but by many Christians, I would be considered a heretic, full on heretic. I was telling you earlier, I actually believe in evolution. I just believe that God created evolution, and if it took 14 billion years for mankind to evolve up from pond scum and dinosaurs and all that happened, and it took millions and millions of years for man to evolve, I have no problem with that. My problem would be if you want to say that it happened by mistake. I'm saying I think there was a God behind it. Now, that said, we're not trying to do church here, so but my point is that I think some of the Christians that are struggling with, just meat, something about that just seems, wrong from just a modern. I mean, Jesus, for crying out, he made wine and he ate bread and fish, and I mean, so I mean, he obviously wasn't, if it's that great, why didn't Jesus say, hey, you should be a carnivore? You know what I mean? So what's the deal? But, where was I going with that? I mean, the point is that the anthropological, thing that like Anthony Chaffee, talks about, Bart Kay talks about, all of the doctors, that go to the evolution thing and say, hey, look, we've only been agrarian for about 10 to 12,000 years, and frankly, most of the Bible it appears to be pretty much in that route until you go back to, and we don't know how far back, the Garden of Eden goes. It could have been billions of years. Who knows? It seems unlikely, but who knows? Anyways, my point is, that it all works together for me. The idea that we did evolve, that evolution doesn't challenge my faith, and that the carnivore thing makes sense because if we did evolve, and it's not the radiocarbon. What are they?
Carbon
stable
isotopes.
stable isotopes, right? The bones of stable of these and the measurements of the excuse me, sorry, of the stable isotopes very clearly, scientifically, without doubt, proved that that's what we ate was, mastodons or whatever, mostly herbivores that were ruminant animals, which is why I think I'm really going to eventually end up carnivore. I mean, lion, the strictest form. Eventually I may, and I've been playing with it, but I think I'm going to go that route because I think there's something to it.
So, Brad, do you have a YouTube channel that people can reach out to you?
Not really. The YouTube channel that I have is mostly music, I mean, I've had it for years. I think you can find it by just typing in Studio 51 Media. But I think you're going to launch me into. I think you're going to launch me into throwing some carnivore stuff in there. I've actually already filmed with a friend of my wife's episode of me making mayonnaise, which I consider a carnivore or at least a keto sauce. Because now I didn't make it with butter or ghee. I did use avocado oil, but I don't see avocado oil as the same as a regular seed oil because I mean the oil comes from the fruit, not from the pit, right? So and that's why I'm also not against olive oil. I don't think you should cook with it. And I don't think you should cook with avocado oil either. But I think that those two oils are not there. In both cases, it's something you can squeeze. Oil comes out, and if you don't process it beyond that, you're good. But mayonnaise made with olives is a bit more than most people want it because it's especially with good virgin olive oil. A lot of people don't want their mayo to taste like olives, so hence the avocado oil. But I have also made sauces with that are butter based, like hollandaise sauce, and which is again a good keto sauce if you really need the sauces. And it helps, but yes. So I'm going to the answer to your question. Sorry, I'm babbling. Is I'm going to get on the stick and start throwing some carnivore stuff up, and I think I'm going to use you as the impetus to finally get off my derriere and really start to make something happen. Again, I don't have your ability to interview people. I'm not very eloquent with my talking. Obviously, I stop and go and and stuff like that. So maybe I can make it better. I can get better at it. I don't know. I may relegate it to cooking and maybe one day I'll learn to shut my mouth and let other people talk because it's something you do really well. And I think, and I agree. I think it's a great move. And I've seen people comment to you that some of them want you to interject and they give you a hard time about that. It's kind of like, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. I think I left a comment like that on one of your, where people were giving you a hard time. A couple wanted to hear more from you. And I would agree with that. I would love to hear more from you too. I think it's wonderful that you don't talk over people. It's again, a skill I need to learn. With my anxiety gone, basically, I find myself more aware that I have that instinct to do that, and I don't have the anxiety drove that I got to remember, what I got to get my 2 cents in. So I'll step on you just to get it out because I need to get it out, kind of thing. And I don't have that anxiety anymore. So I am working on not going there. So, yeah.
So, Brad, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me so much. I really honored, and I hope this is at all usable. And more importantly, I hope it caused some people to get you more comments and people interjecting and asking questions. And I think we're definitely on the road to trying to get people to find this way and get beyond the idea that, that's insane. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because I have empathy for the idea that carnivore and particularly lion seems insane. I get it. But it's, as you and I both know, it literally saved my life.